When a tragedy is covered by the news, the sad reality is that people, are going to kind of forget about it after a few days because, of course, something else is going to happen and take over the headlines. And a lot of important stories, they get left in the dust. Most of us here at Dark History know about the Waco massacre, but nobody really talks about how the Waco massacre led to the deadliest act of domestic terrorism in United States history. The only other terrorist attack bigger than it was 9/11. And the story of how we got there is wild. I'm talking about doomsday preppers, a neo-Nazi book that still really inspires people today, and a whole lot of weird cult stuff. Now listen up. This is the dark history of the Oklahoma City bombing. Hi friends, I hope you're having a wonderful day today. My name is Bailey Sarian and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast, Dark History. And guess what? This is season 4 of Dark History. Can you believe it, you guys? They can't believe it either. Joan and Paul, they are shocked. I know, I'm so excited to be here. We've learned so much throughout the years, haven't we? Well, we are going to continue that this next season. I'm very excited for us. We've got some wild stuff coming up. Today's story is pretty wild as well. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe. I come out with that hot, juicy history goss every week. And let me know what you think down below in the comment section. I love hearing from you. And at the end, usually I, read some of them if you stick around. Okay, so today's story, it's pretty gnarly. Let me tell you about it. Wow. So it's the early 1980s, and we're in a little town in Idaho, and it's called Ruby Ridge. Sound familiar? Maybe it does. And a new family has just moved into town. They're the Weavers. So Vicky and Randy Weaver, they were starting over in life. They had sold everything they owned and they had built a cabin in Ruby Ridge because they were committed to learning how to live the quote unquote simple life. But it wasn't because they were sick of technology or just wanting to simplify their life. Vicky and Randy, they were what you would call doomsday preppers. I'm hesitant to say that because there's some good doomsday preppers who mind their own business, do their own thing, and mean no harm. The Weavers were a little extreme, okay? They believed that the government was getting way too involved in the lives of everyday citizens. And because of that, the end of the world was just around the corner. So they had to pack up, stock up, and move somewhere where they could live off the land. So Randy especially believed that there were spies for the government everywhere. Oh yes. In general, he was a very intense person. So right when Randy moved into the town of Ruby Ridge, allegedly, he was throwing out assassination threats left and right. He even threatened to kill the Pope at one point. Eventually, Randy gets reported to the FBI. Which is wild to think because this is before the internet and all that, so it's we're just traveled. Wild. It's wild to think, I don't know. But the FBI opened an investigation and they decided that their best approach would be to send an undercover informant to befriend Randy. So this informant ends up moving to Ruby Ridge where he and Randy become friends. I know, imagine thinking oh my God, I just got a brand new best friend and we're hanging out, braiding each other's hair, having fun. But actually they were sent from the government to ruin your life. Could you imagine? No, because that sounds fake. Well, it's not. Now, listen, where they meet is interesting. The two of them end up meeting within a white supremacist group called Aryan Nations. And I guess Randy feels he can just trust this informant because, they went to a meeting together. He can't work for the government. I don't know. He's just thinking he can trust him. So Randy starts letting his new friend in on all sorts of plans that he has to rebel against the government. And it's clear to the informant right away that Randy has a lot of conspiracy theories. Randy thought that there was really only one way to save America, and that was to take down the U.S. government. Is life getting a little boring lately? even the book you've been reading is maybe not doing it for you, you know? I personally find myself stuck on this one book that's just not doing it for me. It's been boring. Well, now there's a way to add a little extra spice to life, all while we multitask, or maybe just, lay there and listen. Thanks to the Dipsea app. Dipsea is the female-founded app for spicy audiobooks and more. It was created by women for women, so believe me, they understand what you want. Okay, baby? Listen, their app has over 1,000 spicy audiobooks, all crafted by a team of professional writers and amazing narrators. So whether you're into like Irish stable hands or Australian movie stars, vampires, or Greek goddesses, you'll find characters you love on Dipsea. You can even listen to these romance audiobooks while you run your least favorite errands. I don't know. Now you can wait for your oil to be changed while listening to a sweet talking mechanic give someone else a tune-up, if you know what I mean. With their easy to explore app, you can search for your favorite romance genres. Everything from contemporary to historical is available for your listening pleasure. And new chapters are released every week, so you won't run out of things to listen to. Keep it spicy every week. So start listening now, and then circle back and thank me later. It's good. For listeners of the show, Dipsea is offering an extended 30-day free trial when you go to dipseastories.com/darkhistory. That's 30 days of full access for free when you go to Dipsea, DIPSEA, stories.com/darkhistory. Dipseastories.com/darkhistory. So at some point, Randy had altered some weapons he had to make them more powerful, which was against the law. And Randy ends up giving some of those illegal weapons to his new best friend, the informant. Now, the informant turned around and reported him to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. ATF for short, way easier. And in 1991, Randy was arrested. He was later released, but his case was still open. Randy is supposed to report to court, but he fails to show up multiple times. And because of that, his case then escalated, and there was now a warrant out for his arrest, which meant that the U.S. Marshals, they were coming for his ass. U.S. Marshals, they don't mess around. I mean, especially if you're not cooperating, and especially if they know that you have weapons. On August 21st, 1992, Randy was at home with his family. Suddenly, his dog alerted him that someone was near their property. It turns out it was the U.S. Marshals conducting a surveillance operation on Randy's wife, Vicky. So Randy's dog, I guess, is outside, and he runs after the U.S. Marshal. So the Marshal turned around and ends up shooting the dog. What? Yeah. Then Randy's 14-year-old son, his name was Samuel, he was outside as well, with the dog. So the guys, they point their gun at Samuel. Now, I guess Samuel had a gun, and he fires at the Marshal. Not great idea, but he was kind of raised to do that. Okay. Which then caused them to fire back. So sadly, Samuel was shot and killed. Meanwhile, the family's in the house, watching all of this go down. By this point, another one of Randy's friends had heard the commotion, so he takes a shot at the Marshals and ends up killing one of them. And this totally escalates everything. So the U.S. Marshals are asking the Weaver family to surrender, but the Weaver family is no. Well, first of all, you just shot our son and our dog. This is what Randy was fearing, okay? And it's all happening. So this leads to a standoff and then a shootout. Now, sadly, during all this, Vicky, Randy's wife, she's shot and killed. And even after being wounded by gunfire, Randy went on to have an 11-day standoff with officers before eventually surrendering. In the end, it was proven that the government had used extreme force towards the family, and almost all of Randy's original charges were dropped. The government ended up having to admit, to wrongdoing, and the remaining Weaver family got millions of dollars in settlement money. That was just like a light little recap, okay? Because this incident became known to the people as Ruby Ridge because of where it took place. Now, this story is huge when it comes to anti-government groups. To them, this is like the origin of the government turning against its people and their rights. And then another event that shaped anti-government groups was the Waco massacre. Now, I did an episode on the Waco situation. It's one of those like historical events that's constantly featured in TV shows and movies because the story was just wild, bizarre, weird. It was nuts. Essentially, it was this huge standoff between a religious extremist group and the FBI. And just like with like Ruby Ridge, there were rumors that there were altered weapons being traded and sold and blah, 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 which meant the ATF had to get involved. It was a whole situation. This standoff had lasted for over 51 days. And when all of this was like said and done, it was discovered that 75 people, including many children, had died. To the public, Waco seemed like this really kind of weird, culty group, tragic, but like, no, it was just kind of weird. It was weird. But to the anti-government groups around the country, they were starting to see a pattern. Ruby Ridge, the Waco thing, they were like, something much bigger seems to be happening. I mean, after Waco, something changed. And in the 80s and the 90s, there was like a shift in America. It seemed like the power to sway the government was now with the suburbs and the cities. And people out in the country kind of felt like they were getting left in the dust and felt abandoned. Anti-government groups saw themselves in the Weavers and with like the people at Waco. And they're starting to believe that they're being attacked by the government, right? After what they just saw, they're like, oh crap, this means like anyone could be a target. Therefore, we are a target. So then a new group of people start to emerge, mini militias, essentially, or like armed citizens banding together to take a stand against the government. And they believed that they needed to use weapons and violence to do it. So by 1995, there were militia groups in like 36 states out of 50. And, you know, this idea really like clicked with some people. A lot of people wanted to join the militia any way they could. They wanted to be a part of something, some bigger movement. And one of those people was Timothy McVeigh. Okay, finally, we're getting into the Oklahoma City bombing of it all. You need that backstory to understand how we get here, okay? Go with me on this journey, because it's a journey. So we got Ruby Ridge, we got Waco, now we're on to Timothy, okay? Great. So Timothy. Timothy was born on April 23rd, 1968 in Lockport, New York. He was raised by his dad. It was said that Timothy was like possessive, stubborn, and determined. So good qualities depending on how you use them, I suppose. But it was said that Timothy was like a pretty shy guy, and in school, you know, he would get bullied a lot. He was tall, he was kind of gangly, so kids would call him Noodle McVeigh. You know, they're never creative with bully names, you know, but they would force him. They would give him like swirlies and all this stuff at school. It wasn't great for him. Timothy apparently dealt with this by like disassociating and pretending he lived in a fantasy world, as many do. And in this world, he wasn't just taking this bullying. No, he got revenge. As a teenager, Timothy becomes very interested in guns. I guess his grandfather was into them, so, you know, naturally Timothy got into them as well. It was like a bonding experience between the two. Timothy said he wanted to grow up and, like, one day maybe own a gun shop. After high school, Timothy ends up joining the Army. It says he's happy there because he gets to be around guns all day. And apparently, it was said that he had a talent with guns. He became known as like an expert marksman, and he honestly shines while he is in the Army. David Dilley, who served in the Army with Timothy, said, quote, "Everything we did, he excelled at. He was the best always." Oh, that's unfortunate now, huh? So in 1991, Timothy was deployed to fight in the Gulf War in Iraq. And like so many other soldiers, Timothy was really traumatized by his time there. I guess he had killed several people during the war, and it really affected him. It haunted him, really. He was given several medals and recognitions, as if that's going to take away, the feelings. And he was even given the opportunity to join special forces. But Timothy, he couldn't seem to pass the test needed to get in to special forces. Some people just aren't good test takers, really. So eventually, Timothy was honorably discharged. So he goes back home, and he starts questioning, the war, and, why the hell did my government make me go fight in it? What was it all for? Start ruminating on it. And in an interview that Timothy did with 60 Minutes, I was like, what? He said, I went over there hyped up, just like everyone else. What I experienced, though, was an entirely different ballgame. And being face-to-face close with these people in personal contact, you realize they're just people like you. So he's home, he's got a lot of free time. What do you do when you have a lot of free time and there's no internet yet? He starts to read. And Timothy becomes obsessed with this book called The Turner Diaries. I was like, do I mention this book? Because I don't want to bring more awareness to this book, but it has to be mentioned for the story. Because The Turner Diaries it's a fictional book about a revolution in the United States that is led by anti-government groups. And listen, the author of this book is a neo-Nazi and a founder of a white nationalist group. So how do you think this book is gonna lean? It's not ideal. It's not inspiring for everyone, Oh, it's bad. In the book, an anti-government militia kills all the Jewish and non-white people and then massacres all the, quote, liberal actors and politicians. I'd for research, I read a lot. So I tried to read this, but it was just making me so mad. It was making me so mad. I couldn't finish. It was stupid. But a lot of people read this and they're like, oh my God, this is the shit. It's embarrassing. And you might be thinking hey, it's just a book, whatever. But if it's in the wrong hands, it could be seen as very inspirational to some. And Timothy, he was reading this and he was definitely inspired. Sometimes life is too busy to figure out how you'll deal with all the picky eaters in your life. I've only got one picky eater, and she's usually pretty clear on what she wants. We get it, Joan. You like corn. Luckily, on days like that, I have HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. HelloFresh even lets you choose from a ton of different menu options, so you can find something to suit all your needs and tastes. From fit and wholesome to quick and easy, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Tonight, for example, I can make a warm spinach and spicy chorizo salad with a side of feta-crusted corn. That way I keep Joan and myself happy at the same time. Or if I decide I don't want that salad, I can customize my meal with protein or veggie swaps. Every week, you can check out the HelloFresh Market for delicious add-on items to spice up your scheduled weekly deliveries. HelloFresh cuts out the time you spend shopping, planning, and prepping, so you get to enjoy a home-cooked meal with way less stress. So why spend all the money on delivery apps when you can make amazing food for yourself? So try it for yourself, say goodbye to last-minute trips to the grocery store, and hello to easy, delicious meals. For free breakfast for life, go to hellofresh.com/freedarkhistory. One free breakfast item per box while subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life, just by going to hellofresh.com/freedarkhistory. So online, I was noticing that a lot of people refer to this book as the Bible for extremists and racists. But when we spoke to our expert for today's episode, he told us that the author actually planted that idea himself. He called it the Bible for extremists and racists. And then people just started repeating that. So I guess you could just do that. Dark history is the Bible of dark history. Pass it on. I didn't say that though. Anyways, but the author himself called it a Bible of sorts, and people loved it. They ran with it. Oh, it makes my stomach turn in knots. Timothy spends his time reading this book and dreaming about a better life. Because at this time, it seemed like nothing was really working out for him. He's at home. He's trying to like, he's taking different jobs and they're all like dead end jobs, you know? He ends up developing like a horrible gambling addiction. He gets deep into debt and he has to default on his loans. On top of that, he has like no love life. You know, he wants a girlfriend, but he's not having any luck. At this time, he's just very lost, and he's also getting like really angry. He's just an angry guy. Oh, the cherry on top, boop. He gets a letter in the mail from the military saying that he had been overpaid. He's like, what? So on top of being in debt, he now owed the government over $1,000 because of their mistake. So, I mean, this makes him freaking lose it, you know? Just one thing after another. It's just too much. So Timothy decided he would write the government a letter and air his frustrations. Now, in one of his letters, he said, quote, "Go ahead, take everything I own. Take my dignity. Feel good as you grow fat and rich at my expense, sucking my tax dollars and property." So I think it's safe to say that he is very angry. To be fair, it does suck when like the government comes like, hey, we want money. And you're like, excuse me? I want money too. Cute. It would piss any of us off, really. So when the Waco massacre happens, you know, Timothy's watching this and he's in a really dark place. And he's watching the explosion of the compound on live TV and he's triggered. He thought that Waco was a perfect example of what happens when like the government punishes its citizens for not following the rules. And he obsesses over like the death of those 75 people. So, you know, he's not in a good place. He kind of needs comfort, maybe some community, and he starts going to gun shows. He found that at the gun shows, there was a community of people who felt the same way about the government. They're like, hey, you hate the government? I hate the government too. What? You know. He starts to hyperfixate on the Waco massacre and he's like, I'm gonna get revenge. Apparently, he would print out little cards with the name and address of one of the FBI snipers who was present at Waco. So on the card, it was kind of like suggesting, hinting that, hey, you know, maybe you should like take care of this guy. You know, he killed someone. Maybe if you killed him. So he's like suggesting that someone should kill this FBI sniper, but not really saying it. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. Anyways, and he ends up like really making a name for himself at these gun shows. I guess he had gone to over like 80 gun shows in 40 states, all within 2 years. I know, apparently he had a lot of free time. So while at these shows, he would hand out those cards. He would also sell copies of his favorite book, The Turner Diaries. He was trying to turn his fellow gun enthusiasts into extremists like himself. I mean, he wanted community. He wanted to pretty much overthrow the government, you know? So Timothy ends up reconnecting with two men who would change everything for him, Terry Nichols and Michael Fortier. So Timothy, Terry, and Michael, they actually had known each other from their time in the military. They even made an effort to like stay pen pals afterwards. So in 1994, Timothy calls up Michael. I guess at this point, Michael had fallen on hard times. And he was also said to be struggling with an addiction to meth. So it was not like the best place. So Timothy calls him up and he's probably thinking like, hey, he just wants to get together or whatever. No. On the phone, Timothy tells Michael like it's time for action. Now Michael's confused because he's like, what? Meth? He's like, no, action. He's like, what does that mean? Timothy goes on to explain that they need to get the government's attention by bombing a government building. I know. I'd be like, what? That's a jump. Okay. Now, apparently, like Michael, he was at first, he's like, okay, sure. But then after a little bit, he's like, I don't know. Well, Timothy gets to work. He doesn't really give a rat's ass about what Michael says. He starts building a bomb. And he's like very thorough when it comes to building his bomb. He put in a lot of effort testing out different chemicals to make like the worst bomb possible. He even drove out to the desert to test out different versions of his bombs, you know, just blowing them up, seeing which one did the most damage, whatever. Like, he was obsessed. So all these bomb tests made things a little too real for Michael, you know. As soon as Timothy asked him to come over and help build it, Michael was like, no, I don't know, no. Timothy was irritated that Michael was like all talk You know, he's like, dude, you suck. So Timothy ends up calling up his other friend and his army buddy, Terry. So Terry, he too was like in a weird place. He had left his wife and he went on to like marry a 17-year-old girl and have children with her. And I don't know, things were just a little weird. But they had something in common. Terry also blamed the government for all of the bad things that were happening like all around him. And this is exactly the kind of chaos Terry craved. He's like, bomb, blow it up, a building, what? I'm in. So Terry is really excited about this plan to blow up a government building. Now, Timothy, a lot of tease going on. Timothy was thrilled, you know, that Terry wasn't all talk like Michael was, you know? So the two of them like start making the plans even more real. They pick their target, the Murrah building in Oklahoma City. Timothy and Terry picked the Murrah building because it held so many important government branches in one building. Also, the two of them believed that this building was where they had orchestrated the Waco attack. And to them, Timothy and Terry, what was even more exciting, or maybe the cherry on top, was that there was a daycare on site for the families of the federal employees. So they knew that the explosion could wipe out the building, killing men, women, and children. So in their mind, this for sure was going to get the government's attention. So they settled on the building. Now they started putting together an execution plan, really. So first, they needed funding. All of the supplies they needed to make this happen, I guess, cost a ton of money. The Aryan Republican Army, a white supremacist militia, was like, guys, don't worry, we got your back. So this group ends up robbing the home of a gun collector in Arkansas, stole all of their like guns, ends up selling them, and now they had like money to finance this bombing. So with that cash, they bought supplies to build the bomb, and they also rented a Ford F700. Put up a picture here. Great. What's it look like? Tell me, because I don't know, but I guess it's like a big truck. It's a very big truck. But what they were going to do is like turn this truck into a bomb delivery truck. So once they have everything, Terry steps out because Timothy had planned to do the actual bombing on his own. He was like, I don't need you anymore. Bye. Terry told him like he was planning on watching the whole thing go down on TV because he knew just the date of the bombing alone would get a ton of media attention. What? Why? Well, let me tell you. Shut up. Listen. It's April 19th, 1995, which was the 2-year anniversary of the Waco massacre. I frickin' roll. Yeah. He's like, what if we do it on the date? At 8 a.m., there was like an annual prayer breakfast being held in the Murrah building. So I guess people that day had arrived earlier than usual. There were already 21 kids dropped off at the daycare. At 9:02 a.m., Timothy drives his truck filled with 5,000 pounds of explosives up to the building. He parks the truck by the north entrance and just like books it out of there. Then, when he's far away, he detonates the bomb. Side note, the day Timothy bombed the Murrah building, he was wearing a shirt that said "Death to Tyrants" on it in Latin. It was what John Wilkes Booth shouted after he killed Abraham Lincoln. It was a deep cut. Listen. So the bomb gets set off, and within seconds, this whole building, half of the building gets completely blown up and wiped away. Oh, the images are so crazy looking. It looks like a war zone. And the explosion was so powerful that shock waves were said to be felt from like 55 miles away. It registered on the Richter scale as a 6.0 earthquake. The hell? I know. I was like, what? Now, if you've been around for a while, if you've been alive, you've seen the pictures of this building, and it looks, I don't even know what to say. There's no words. It's tragic. The blast immediately destroyed most of the Murrah building. Most of it collapsed into a pile of rubble. Flying glass and pieces of metal went everywhere, just everywhere. It was awful. And the bomb didn't just damage the Murrah building, it damaged the buildings near it too, including the daycare. So when the ambulance was called, they had a hard time getting to the building because the dust and smoke were so thick that you could barely see through it. And it was just a horrifying scene. Wanda R. Webster, she had worked on the 8th floor of the building. She told the New York Times, quote, "We weren't screaming. We were quiet, just holding on to each other and saying we were going to get out." Richard H. Dean, who also worked in the building, remembers, quote, "I had just finished my first cup of coffee. I remember seeing a brilliant flash of light and hearing a huge explosion before everything turned pitch black." After finding his way out of the rubble, Richard went back to the Murrah building to help his colleagues, who he knew were either badly injured or dead. He remembers helping rescue his coworker, Sharon Littlejohn, who was in such horrible shape after the blast that he didn't even recognize her. He said, quote, "She was under 3 to 4 feet of debris and rubble. Her outer clothing had been blown off and she was completely soaked with blood and water. I had to ask her name because she was not recognizable due to significant blood loss in the scalp and facial areas." Luckily, Sharon did survive, but so many other people weren't as lucky. 168 people died, including 19 children from the daycare, and 674 people were injured. Timothy's act of terrorism became known as the Oklahoma City bombing. So after this, after Timothy blew up the place, he went on the run. Can I even say that? Because he really didn't even get that far. So he's on the run. He's on the run for like an hour and 15 minutes, and he gets pulled over by a police officer, and he ends up getting arrested because he was driving without a license plate, and he also had an illegal firearm. Now, this police officer had no clue that this was the guy who just blew up that building. He had no idea. He was just like, no license plate, illegal firearm, you're arrested. Timothy's taken to jail, and at that point, there was a sketch released of the bombing suspect. So when police saw it, right away, they started to realize that this Timothy guy might be the bomber. I mean, what are the odds of that though, huh? Then the clues just kept pouring in. First of all, there were traces of chemicals used in the explosion all over Timothy's clothes. He also had a note on him saying, "TNT, $5 a stick, need more." I'm not sure what that means, but okay, guy. One of the final smoking guns was Timothy's car. When the FBI searched his car, they found a shocking amount of anti-government literature. And since he was such a vocal member of anti-government groups, the cops knew this was their man. This was the guy. So in the end, Timothy got charged with 160 state counts and 11 federal counts. Some of these counts were 1 count of conspiring to use a weapon of mass destruction, 1 count of using a weapon of mass destruction, 1 count of destruction by explosives, and 8 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of 8 federal agents. Timothy got arrested, right? What about his friend Terry? If you've had to make an appointment with a doctor lately, then you know how annoying it can be. You have to look through a ton of different search results and websites and calendars, and then you finally get through to the doctor you need or you want. And sometimes the sassy receptionist, they just hang up on you, or the call gets disconnected. And the worst part of all is that you're usually going through this whole process when you're not feeling your best. Well, luckily, the whole doctor finding process is made way easier when you use ZocDoc. Oh yes, ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and click to instantly book an appointment. And you can filter your search so ZocDoc can give you the best options for you. Oh yeah, you can find doctors nearby, ones who take your insurance, and who already come highly rated by real, verified patients. We're talking about in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, eye care to skin care, and there is so much more. Recently, I've been looking for a new dentist, and there's so many out here. It's which one do I go to? I don't even know. But thanks to ZocDoc, I can look at the verified patient reviews, find the ones that take my insurance, and just book through the app. It's so easy. I freaking love this app. On top of that, ZocDoc appointments happen fast. Typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even score same-day appointments. I know. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/darkhistory to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc, ZocDoc.com/darkhistory. ZocDoc.com/darkhistory. Well, Terry, look, his address and name was on the rental for the truck. So Terry actually ended up turning himself in and was formally charged on May 10th, 1995. In a letter to the jury, Terry wrote that he never thought Timothy would actually carry out the plan. Okay, sure. But it didn't matter. Terry Nichols was sentenced to life in prison. And Timothy's other army buddy, that Michael guy, yeah, he was charged too. Even though Michael was apologetic to the jury, he also played the dumb card, claiming that he didn't realize how serious Timothy was. But the evidence said otherwise. Michael was sentenced to 12 years in prison and a $200,000 fine. So, he's out of prison now, and allegedly, rumor has it, he's in the witness protection program. Why? Okay, so Timothy's trial, on the other hand, wasn't so cut and dry. His trial took over 2 years. They even had to move the trial to Denver because it was impossible to find an impartial jury in Oklahoma. I mean, this was everywhere. This was all over the news. It was huge. It was major. Everybody knew about it. So I'm sure like everyone would just convict him. He's guilty. He did it. Like, F that guy, right? So whatever. Timothy decided to use the necessity defense, arguing that the bombing was needed in order to prevent the federal government from stripping American citizens of their rights. Timothy once said, quote, "What the U.S. government did to Waco and Ruby Ridge was dirty, and I gave dirty back to them at Oklahoma City." So the trial included heart-wrenching testimony from the families of victims and from police officers who described the horrors of finding bodies of dead children from the daycare. Couldn't imagine. So the jury ends up deliberating for like 23 hours, and then in the end, they finally returned with a verdict. Timothy McVeigh was sentenced to death. I mean, I think we can all agree that was probably the right move. I mean, maybe not, you don't agree, but yeah, I think that's fine. It was said Timothy never really showed remorse. He wrote in a letter before his death, quote, "I'm sorry these people had to lose their lives, but that's the nature of the beast. It's understood what the human toll will be." Yeah, he's gotta go. Send him out. So, he got his last meal, which was like a mint chocolate chip ice cream. That was his last meal. And then on June 12, 2001, 33-year-old Timothy McVeigh was executed by lethal injection. In the aftermath of the Oklahoma City bombing, everyone assumed it was the work of a foreign terrorist. And without any evidence, the media started a manhunt for a Middle Eastern-looking terrorist. Oh yes. When Timothy's face was shown all over the news, everywhere, people were shocked. They were like, "A white man? What?" They were so confused. It was like shattering their idea of safety. Americans now were not only afraid of homegrown domestic terrorists, but I think they're realizing like, oh yeah, people who live here could do this shit too, huh? Like, it wasn't just from foreign countries like everyone wants us to believe. The call was coming from inside the house. Anyways, when I was learning about this story, I was thinking, what came from this? Did anything come from this besides devastation, right? Like, after the fact. Did any laws change? Government buildings get locked down? Like, what happened? Well, here's what I found out, and I thought this was really interesting. It's not that interesting, but I thought it was. After the bombing, the White House put fencing around the front entrance on Pennsylvania Avenue. So now this was a huge deal because normally they would need public approval to do this, and the White House was like open for all. The White House was just open, but the White House, I guess, didn't want to risk it. They were worried that someone would park another car bomb outside the White House and would blow it up. So they put up the fencing around the White House, and the fencing has been up ever since. Ain't that some shit? Literally, like even now, if you go to the White House, there's fencing still up. It's because of this bombing. Isn't that weird? In the year 2000, the Oklahoma National Memorial Museum was built on the former site of the Murrah building, and its purpose is to honor the victims and all those who were affected by this horrible tragedy. You can learn more about this memorial on their website, memorialmuseum.com, and also I'll link it down below for you. Now, here were some questions I had that were not answered. One, that white supremacy group who helped steal all those guns and get the cash to fund Timothy's bombing, what happened to them and how come they weren't investigated? Exactly. Two, I guess that was mainly it. They funded the whole thing. Anywho, this story was nuts. I never knew anything truly about it. I mean, I remember the images and how horrifying it was, but I really didn't understand why it happened. I was just a young little Bailey at the time. But it was such a wild ride, and it's who knew so many things in history were just who knew all these things were connected? Who knew? Okay, so it got me wondering how the hell are the Turner Diaries still a thing? Because I was looking at the list of banned books. Have you recently taken a little gander? A little look-see at banned books? It's To Kill a Mockingbird, Of Mice and Men. What? Lord of the Flies, Catcher of the Rye, Animal Farm. I don't see Turner Diary on this thing. It's just kind of interesting to me, isn't it? You know what's not on this list either? Mein Kampf. It's not on this list either. It's kind of interesting. I think we're a little confused here, aren't we? Anywho. Now what? Now you're going to go about your day with this knowledge. And what did we learn here today? We learned I'm not saying this is going to solve every problem out there. I'm just saying thinking of the future, thinking about things we should be thinking about as a community, as a whole. We should give veterans, people who are honorably discharged from the Army, from the Navy, whatever, there needs to be some kind of therapy and direction and plan for them after the fact when they come back to the normal, quote unquote, normal world. Because you can't go from killing a bunch of people and then back to normal society and just act normal. I mean, these people need help and guidance. It should be available to them. I know that not everyone's going to take advantage of it, but it should be available to them, right? I'm not saying it could have prevented this, but I'm saying it would have been a nice option for him to maybe talk it out. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. It's a takeaway here. I can't wait for all the Turner Diary people to just light me up. So next week, we're kicking off our Halloween episodes. I know, what are you gonna wear? Hold on, my hair's knotted. What are you gonna be? I think I'm gonna be a cat. I don't know. But we are, kicking off our Halloween episodes with a topic that most of us actually have experience with. What's that? You don't know what I'm talking about? Well, it's your annoying uncle's favorite thing to do. It's caused some of the worst fights in history, and in some cases, even led to murder. I'm talking about board games. What? Yeah. Isn't that fun? We'll see. I mean, I want to know, where did the Ouija board come from? How many people have died over a game of Monopoly? You'd be surprised. And was Yahtzee really invented on a yacht? My curious ass was up all night, trying to figure it out for you. So anywho, join us next week as we kick off spooky season and talk all things Ouija board, Monopoly, and Yahtzee. Well, friends, thank you for hanging out with me today. Did you know that you can join me over on my YouTube, where you can watch these episodes on Thursday after the podcast airs? And if you're watching me right now, hi! And while you're there, you can also catch my murder mystery and makeup. Don't forget to subscribe, because I'm here for you weekly with new content. Well, actually, really quick, listen. Murder mystery, I do every other Monday. Dark history, we do 3 and then 1 week off. That might be confusing, but I'm just letting you know. I love to hear your guys' reactions to today's story, so make sure to leave a comment below so I can see what you guys are saying, and maybe your comment might even get featured in a future episode. Now, let's read a couple of comments you guys have left me. Tyler Hackner 9731, hi Tyler Hackner, left a comment on our Death to Disco episode, saying, "Disco actually kicks ass." Wow, Tyler, I couldn't agree more. It does. Oh, you can see my brassiere. Oh dear. Amber JD11 left me a comment saying, my dad has become obsessed with you. At first, he wasn't sure. You totally pulled him in. He's blown away by your abilities to storytell. He loves you. Thank you for being a part of his healing. He almost died on my birthday in November. He's massively come around from heart failure and other things. You've been fantastic company for him. Amber, that's so special. Give your dad a big hug for me. Say it's from me. That's very sweet. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. I don't know. Thank you both for listening. I just appreciate you. I hope your dad is healing well, and I'm glad he came around because, Daddy, I'm great. Daddy. Hi, Daddy. Hey, Daddy. Daddy. I'm just kidding. Daddy. Okay. I love you. Thank you. I appreciate you. That was really sweet. Thank you for sharing that with me. It really means a lot. Sometimes I forget that people are actually watching my videos, because really when you think about it, it's just me sitting in front of a camera and then my two friends here who don't talk. So a lot of the times I'm is anybody even watching or listening? And you guys let me know, and I just really appreciate it. It really means a lot. Thank you. Shireen E. Roberts 8537 left us an episode suggestion saying, hi Bailey. Hey, I love how Dark History fills in some of the gaps I learned in history. Thank you. This is a big ask. Oh no. But I would love it if you did a Dark History of the phone companies and TV to cable services. Love Dark History, or DH. Okay, at first I was a little worried about what you're going to ask me, because sometimes people ask me to do weird shit. Hey, for $5, can I suck your big toe? And I'm okay, fine, So I was a little worried. I didn't know where this was going. But listen, I didn't think about this, and that's actually a really good idea, because, cable companies are low-key the worst, and what is up with them, huh? I'm gonna look into this. Thank you. That's a good one. I like this. I like you. I like this. And I appreciate you for watching and listening and being here. Thank you. Taylor Gessler said, petition for Bailey to get a cat to star in these Dark History episodes. Taylor, listen. Let me think about this. Listen, I don't have anything against cats, but if you haven't noticed, Joan is a bird. And cats and birds, they have their own dark history. So I think a cat might actually kill my co-host. And, well, maybe I should get a cat. Thanks for the suggestion. What would I name the cat? Because I got Paul, Joan. What would the cat be? Puss in Boots? Shrek. Okay. DVDV8197 left me a joke. Oh, I love a joke. Did I ever tell the story of the time I went to the seafood disco? No. I pulled a muscle. Okay, I won't lie. At first, that was dumb. But as it marinates, I'm definitely going to use that. That's really funny. LOL. LOL. Send me more jokes. I like this idea. Anyway, I love you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you so much for being here with me, especially throughout all these years. I'm excited for this season 4. Keep on commenting, because maybe you'll be featured. Maybe you won't, but either way, it's fun and I read them. And hey, if you don't know, Dark History is an Audio Boom original. I want to give a big special thank you to our expert, Professor Bruce Hoffman of Georgetown University, co-author of the book God, Guns, and Sedition. He really gave us lots of education on today's subject, so big thank you to him. And I am your host, if you don't know, Bailey Sarian. I hope you have a good day, you make good choices, and I'll be talking to you next week. Goodbye.